please do a Last of Us 2 review. Would love to hear your opinion on it. Now, let me be very clear. There are not going to be any spoilers in what I talk about next. I am not going to spoil The Last of Us 2 for anybody. I hated when I saw that it got leaked on Twitter. I actually avoided it. I didn't want to. I love The Last of Us, the first game, and I knew that the second game was coming, so I went media blackout. No trailers, no nothing. I've avoided all Last of Us 2 content until now. And I played through the entire Last of Us 2, excuse me. I played The Last of Us 2. It was way freaking longer than I believed it would be. It's like, I thought I came to the end, and it kept going. And then I thought it came to the end again, and it kept going. I was like, wow, this is a long game. And that's not the worst thing ever. I like the gameplay. I know these characters. I care deeply about them in The Last of Us 2. And, going into The Last of Us 2, and even while I'm playing, as the game kept kind of even dragging on, it felt like I felt compelled to not only play, but finish. I felt like an obligation and these are people I know and care about, and I gotta know how this ends. And then I also love Naughty Dog, the developer of The Last of Us. It's the same developer that made Crash Bandicoot, and my two favorite game series of all time are the Uncharted series and Jak and Daxter. Jak and Daxter, The Precursor's Legacy. I still play that game. I have it on PlayStation 3. I have it on my PS2. I have it all over my place I live. I have multiple consoles with Jak and Daxter, The Precursor's Legacy on it because I love playing that game. It's my favorite game of all time. And I've played it more times than I would care to tell you, and I'm really good at it, and it's embarrassing. So I love Naughty Dog, and I love their storytelling, and Nathan Drake's a great story, a great character, and so I feel like I'm a big fan of Naughty Dog, the people who made The Last of Us 2, and so I'm like, I gotta play this game, and I gotta get through it, and I gotta know the story. And the gameplay, after beating the gameplay of The Last of Us 2, very enjoyable. I love sneaking around. I thought that there are some mechanics they added where you go from crouching to crawling and prone on the ground, and I love using the bow and arrow. I hated that I couldn't craft arrows more easily. I always wanted more arrows because I love sneaking around the game. That game was really fun to play stealthily, and I really, really enjoyed the silent weapons. You can craft silencers now. That's a really cool thing. So now, in the first Last of Us, you couldn't go prone, and your guns there was no way to silence your gun. The only weapon that you could shoot people with and not alert enemies was the bow and arrow. And that's not true in The Last of Us 2. You can craft silencers, and that's huge. It's so great to be able to shoot someone stealthily and not have to use just your bow and arrow. Because I ran out of arrows all the time, but I always had ammunition for my guns. And so the gameplay I thought was really fun. The story is not fun. And then I have to ask myself, did I enjoy the overall experience of The Last of Us 2? I did not. And that makes me sad, but it's also true. This game is dark. This is a dark, bleak, kind of miserable game. I like the gameplay mechanics a lot. And the game's gorgeous to look at. It's really pretty. It's the most beautiful game I've ever played on my... I just got a 4K TV a little while ago. It's beautiful. But there's nothing magical about the apocalypse in The Last of Us 2. There's nothing. This apocalypse is dark. And it really... If anyone's ever watched the movie, it's also a really good book, The Road. It's got Viggo Mortensen in the movie. The apocalypse, the idea of an apocalypse is just dark and awful. And it's messed up. And, I'm never playing this game again. Not because I hated it, not because I didn't like it, because I saw it once, and I'm glad I saw it through, and I never want to revisit it because it was not a fun, enjoyable experience. I thought the gameplay was really cool. There's if I want to stealthily kill people, I can do that in Assassin's Creed and in Far Cry 5 and in so many other video games. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a game I am halfway through and I want to play someday. Horizon Zero Dawn's got great stealth gameplay. My point is, you can get the gameplay fix you have in The Last of Us 2 in so many other games. And I don't want that story ever again. It was dark. It was horrible. I really don't want to revisit it. Uncharted 3 had so many fun moments I want to revisit. I think about the plane. I think about the cargo boat. I'm going to play Uncharted 3 again someday. The Last of Us 2 is just devoid of joy. I'm not going to play that again. I don't want to. And I think it's a game where if you have to know how the story ends, you got to play it. I'm glad I played it. I have no regrets, but also I'm never going to revisit it. And I do think that this was a realistic apocalypse. I mean, it's still not a good time, though. A realistic zombie apocalypse is not actually fun. I mean, the more coronavirus has gone on and on, I'm stuck in my house. I'm like, man, I always thought maybe I'd want to deal, like, what would an apocalypse be like to live through? I don't want to live through that at all. And, there was a big theme in The Last of Us 2 for me. It was empathy. It's so easy to hate other people simply because they're in a different group from you or on the wrong side of an argument from you. They hate Tom Brady, or their political opinions are different from you, or this or that. And there's always two sides to every argument. And I think the story for me of this game, the theme of it for me, was that it really is so important, and it cannot hurt to try and empathize with, or find common ground with another group of people that you have differing beliefs or opinions from. And when you can't find common ground, it's sad. Some people you can't. There are evil people out there that I'm never gonna have common ground with them, or I'm never gonna see their side of things because they're just evil and bad. I really think there are people like that. But it is still sad when you can't find common ground with people, and that's kind of the message that was really sent and hit home for me with The Last of Us 2. And what I think is really telling about The Last of Us world is that in a zombie-infested world where there are all kinds of infected that can kill you in so many ways, the fact that other people that are not infected were the true enemies is a sad reality. And it's probably realistic, but it's the darkest part of the Last of Us universe. And The Last of Us 2, I think no game's ever made me feel more guilty killing people or it's weird how The Last of Us 2 has all, like, I really wanted to sneak through so many there are environments where the game funnels you through. It's really cool where, you go through an area, you got to go from point A to point B. But the way to get from A to B, there's like 20 different avenues you can go to get there, because it opens up and then funnels you back through another space. I mean, it's like literally like, ever seen a bottle? It opens up and then it goes back into a narrow way, and there's only one way to get through to the next part. But the way to get to the point B is just a bunch of different ways. You can sneak through buildings, or go left, or go up, or go down, or whatever. I hope I'm making sense. And there's a really cool part. You're in Seattle. Places I've been actually, it's kind of cool, where it opens up and I have a map and I follow the map to all these different points. I loved that part. I love exploring the world. I don't know where I was going. The world's cool to explore. Here's what it is. My point is that you can't sneak from point A to point B without killing people. There's so many moments where, like, I'm creeping through and I can't get to where I want to go without killing people to get to point B. And it's so frustrating. I'm like, can I just... You're forcing me to kill people. And then the story of the game makes me feel guilty for killing people. I've never played a game where it's like, kill people, you have to, but also you better feel bad. It's like, well, I don't like that at all. And so that's my take on The Last of Us, man. It's just a dark, bleak game. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, where I love Game of Thrones. I'll probably never watch Game of Thrones again because it's really dark and really hard to watch. But I had to see it through. And I think Last of Us fans will have to see it through as well. I'm ranting now, but it's the only place I have to talk about. I do a podcast with my girlfriend. Her and I are not going to talk about The Last of Us 2. So here's my chance to share my thoughts about Last of Us 2. I had to get it out. I'm glad Himeth asked me to talk about it. And it's a good game. It's a great game. It's a game I didn't love, not because it's not good. It can be good and not be fun. And that's what The Last of Us 2 is for me. It's the not fun game because it's dark and it's bleak and it's real. And I'll be honest, here's why I play video games. It's the same thing with sports. You know why I play video games? You know, I watch sports. I watch sports to get away from real life. I love escapism. The world is dark, man. Anyone ever look at the news recently or go outside? Can you see everyone wearing masks? It's awful. It's awful. And there's all kinds of horrible stuff happening in the world. And it's hard, man. Like 4 years ago, my brother died. And for me, what helped me get through that was listening to sports podcasts. So we're listening to, not true, I listened to, there's a podcast now, it's called, a guy named Colin Moriarty did a video game podcast. And for me, that podcast got me through the hard time in my life when my brother died. And I, as a kid, loved listening to podcasts. And so I love this kind of stuff. It's my favorite thing. And I play games to get away from the real world. And when the story the game tells me is 30 hours of misery and dark and beating me over the head with sadness. I don't really want that. I don't want that again. I get it. Naughty Dog made a great game that I don't ever want to touch ever again in my life. I played it. I did it once. Glad I did. I'm glad I know how that ends. But it's not an enjoyable time.